Hey there, hope you're doing good. Let's continue refactoring Futurecam. Specifically, we'll take a stab at moving some mode specific functionality into the mode classes. So if you look at this function, it checks which mode we are in. This is bad code. Instead, you should have an overridden function in burst mode. So let's see what we can do about that. It also becomes hard to understand with so many cases. I don't even know why there are two functions. One that takes three parameters, mode, capture type, correct exposure. One that doesn't take a correct exposure as an argument. Actually, even before we move anything to mode, let's see what we can do about this overloading. Is the code the same? Let's compare these two. The 3 argument one on the left and the 2 argument one on the right. You're getting the correct exposure and validating, otherwise you are returning something. You have var duration cm time. If burst mode 30, then max. If it is excess or better in video, then 1/3. Then you are dividing correct exposure by duration, then min ISO, then chosen format if it is greater than or equal to return something. You are doing max of correct exposure by min ISO and min exposure duration. You are returning duration comma min ISO. So these functions are similar, except that except for this part at the beginning. So one thing we can explore is whether we can keep this and then this entire part, can it be replaced by a call to this function. Let's recheck again. Oh, this parameter has been removed. Duration cm time, if it is burst mode 1/30, otherwise active format dot max exposure duration, if excess or better and video, duration is min of duration and 1/3. Chosen var chosen ISO equal to correct exposure by duration. Chosen ISO is dot minimum chosen ISO, active format dot max ISO. duration is cm time maximum of correct exposure by min ISO active format dot mean exposure duration. Okay, great. We can replace this. Oops. Mode. Oh shit. Mode is mode. Capture type is capture type. Correct exposure is correct exposure. Eh, what happened to the change? Okay, finally the diff turned up. Okay, commented code is removed and this entire chunk is replaced by a call to another function. Great. I think there's some more low noise function. Low noise settings. Oh, these are the only two in AV capture device. Great. Okay, now we need to look at the single implementation of this function. So what's the logic here? If it is burst mode, the duration is fixed and you calculate the ISO based on the duration. Let's write this function. Let duration equal to cm time, value is 1, time scale is 30. We'll make it var. Later we can change it to let if we don't reassign it. Var ISO equal to correct exposure by duration. So when it's dark, what happens? The ISO will become higher than the max. So you have to clip it to the max. So if ISO greater than active format dot max ISO, return duration and active format dot max ISO. this code can be rewritten that way, because in that case, okay, let's take it one step at a time. We know the ideal duration. The burst mode should capture 30 frames per second, so the duration ideally has to be 30. If it is 1 by 10, for example, it can capture only 10 frames a second, right? If you're capturing each frame in 1/10 of a second, then by the time you have captured 10, you have exhausted the 1 second. So you can't capture 30. So it has to be 1 by 30. Calculate the ISO. This is too dark case. Then there's a normal case. There's a too bright. If you point it into the sun, then what happens is the ISO can go below the minimum. Yes, if ISO greater than active format dot min ISO, return duration ISO. This is a valid case. Or a normal case. See if we can fit it into one line. Yes, we can. So for 30 FPS, and you calculate the ISO based on the duration. If it is greater than the max, it's too dark, clamp it to the max. If it is greater than the min, equal to. If it's equal to the max also, it's fine. Only if it is greater than, you have to clamp it, otherwise it will be an error. If it is exactly equal also, it's fine. Now the other case is the ISO is too low. I am putting a blank line to indicate that the comment applies to what comes next, not to line 94. Now we deal with a situation of pointing the phone into the sun, which causes the ideal ISO to drop below the minimum, causing a crash if not dealt with. So what do you do here? In this case, you use the or shining a torch into the camera. So how do you check for this case? Return CM time maximum of. So again, the basic logic here is ISO equal to active format dot min ISO, duration equal to correct exposure by ISO, so Let's look at this logic again. We have an ideal duration. We have calculated the ISO based on that, because basically the equation here is using the equation ISO into duration equal to exposure. Using this, we know the correct exposure, we know the duration, so we have calculated the ISO. If it is too high, we have clamped it and returned it. If it is valid, we have returned it. Otherwise, if it is too low, we have set it to the minimum. And this time we have inverted this. Instead of calculating the ISO based on the duration, we have calculated the duration based on the ISO. Now, duration has to be so this is the correct formula. So there are like so many cases to handle. I wonder if we should have a normalization function. We should calculate the ideal version, then we normalize it. Suppose we do this. Okay, it has loaded. It's just slow. $500 something is the line number. Okay, error messages go away. So basically what I'm wondering is if this can be moved to the mode this way. Mode var ideal exposure duration CM time Actually, you know what? I think we should remove this iPhone XS specific workaround, because after that we have had the iPhone 11, then 12, then 13. So hopefully Apple has fixed it by now. If not, let this phone suffer. Is iPhone XS. Yes. It's just not worth it. Oh. Okay, this is needed. Apple must have or should have fixed this by now. In iOS, whatever, 14 or whatever the newest one is. been 2 years, so there's no reason they wouldn't have fixed it. So here, oops. Yeah, so what we are exploring here is, should we make it mode specific? We can't make it completely mode specific because the code to handle all these cases is still the same. Only this part is different. We don't want to repeat this code elsewhere. Copy pasting code is bad, increases the chance of bugs, makes it hard to understand and all the. Yeah, let's discard this as well. And then pull. This is an edge. Yes, the commit has arrived here. So yes, we are not looking at this. Let's look at, we'll just code this up, we'll see if it's better or worse. Mode, oops. Var ideal exposure duration cm time. It's a func. It takes some parameters and it returns a cm time. Oh, it just returns active formats, max exposure duration. Okay. So we definitely need to pass the active format or the AV capture device itself here. But this can access the AV capture device. So it can be a var. Return device dot active format dot max exposure duration. Burst mode would override it and return override var Oh, we need access to the mode, but we already got it here. Mode equal to burst mode dot. So it's a mode class, not a mode object. That's okay. That can be solved simply by making this class. Now you don't need an object, because anyway you're not accessing the instance variable. So this would be a good design anyway, even if this code did need it. Var duration equal to mode dot ideal exposure duration. and mode is the class, not the object here. So that is why you are able to call this. So let's look at these diffs. The duration is ideal exposure duration. Here it is 1/30, here it is max. Is it the same logic? Here it is 1/30, otherwise it's max. Great. We should look for is X mode. Shift F rejects is dot star mode. The hint code is a mess. Oh, 112 results. It's pretty bad. I think a lot of them are not actual results. See, is changing mode. What is this? This global current mode is terrible. Here we don't need this variable. Yeah, this can be taken as an argument. Oh, the real problem is that the app delegate has a reference to main controller. So I think the real problem is to fix this variable, which should be private. So that's a different thing. This hint manager code is a mess. I don't understand. This is only for time-lapse mode. Show necessary hints. So the basic logic is, I'll tell you what the hint system is. It is something that analyzes how you are using the app and gives you hints or suggestions. For example, for time-lapse, you want to plug in a power bank and turn on airplane mode so that recording isn't interrupted. Now, if there are multiple hints, we want them to be shown one by one rather than one on top of another. Oh, and also we don't want to show them one by one, we want to show only one. Let the user get that right and take another photo. Then we'll tell him the second thing to improve, rather than tell him you should do this and this and this. It's not clear, users will pay attention. I have seen them just dismiss it. Where is this called? Main controller, ask for email ID. Yeah, this is not a hint. Sheesh, again global reference. show toast. This also should not be here. Show necessary hints. Doesn't burst mode invoke it? Strange. But we saw something here. So if show necessary hints is not invoked from burst mode, then what's the point of checking here? Oh, it's invoked from burst recorder. Okay, it is still invoked from burst mode in some way. Okay, cool. Yeah, this formatting should be better. Like one blank line between cases and before. Okay, so far so good, and blank line here. Okay, cool. Now actually I'm not so particular about this, we can think about that later. So if it is burst mode, oh wait, before that we have some common code. If show tripod hint, oh yeah, I guess it's okay. I'll just leave it as it is, because there are two ways of looking at it. One way of looking at it is all the burst mode specific code, including hints, should be in burst mode. The second way is all the hint code, irrespective of the mode, should be in hint manager, which is fine because I don't want the actual photography code to be complicated by the hints code. That's why I put it this way, because getting the core part right in this app is hard enough. Hints are like something to the side. Yeah, so we'll leave it as it is. Here, what was that? Is dot star mode. So forget the hint manager, forget the storyboard, comment. Yeah, so we'll think about what to do here. So if it is not a time-lapse mode, we should switch to tele if it is better for this scene. So originally time-lapse mode had a, okay, so let's take a step back here. Let me describe what it does. On the iPhone camera app, you don't choose the camera, you just choose a zoom level. And once you pinch to zoom to get to 2x, the telephoto camera is used, or 3x depending on the device, or 2.5x, whatever. But the iPhone also takes into account whether it is day or night. So if you zoom at night and the telephoto camera doesn't work well, the iPhone uses the wide camera and crops the photo to make it look like a telephoto, which actually produces a better photo. So if you just use the iPhone camera app, you don't actually get to choose which of the cameras on the back of the phone is used. You choose a zoom level. Based on that, the system decides which camera works best. And that is what this does. If the zoom level is high and it's bright, and based on a bunch of factors, it decides to use a telephoto. Except in time-lapse mode. Now earlier we had a multi-time lapse. So this didn't make sense. But now that we don't have a multi-time lapse anymore, I don't see why this should be special cased. So let's do this. Don't check the current mode using camera.mode equal to, okay, fine. Don't special case time lapse in set.tele. No longer have a multi lapse. Back to the search. Okay, what are we trying to do here? So basically each mode has a preferred camera. That's what we are trying to get at here. In time lapse, the default is ultra wide. In burst, it is tele. So I think a better way would be class var preferred camera AV capture device return dot wide, and in burst mode override class var preferred camera AV capture device return dot tele. If it is not there, wide. This requires some comments. Burst mode is used for sports which happens at a distance, so use tele. the phone may not have a tele camera. Even the iPhone 13 or 14, whatever the latest one is, not the Pro, it has only wide and ultra wide. So this code is deleted. Ultra wide, if it is time lapse, God, this code is so confusing. Default burst camera should be tele. So wait, if it is time lapse and there's an ultra wide, so time lapse prefers ultra wide. That much I've been able to understand. It's mode, override class var preferred camera device return dot ultra wide. If it is not there, what should I return? That we need to think about. We'll get to that. Else, okay, it's wide. So suppose this code is invoked when we are in time lapse mode. This is true. If there is an ultra wide camera, it goes for that. Otherwise, it comes here, and time lapse is not burst, so it goes here and selects wide. This is the nil operator, the nil check operator. So if this is non-nil, it returns this, otherwise it returns this. Okay, so this is taken care of. What else? Oh, I don't know if this code works well because it doesn't check whether there's a tele camera, the way it checks whether there's an ultra wide. So the default in everything which is not a burst mode is wide. Yes. So light trail video mode doesn't need to explicitly override. Now what this messy code needs to do is this. Maybe we can write it better. We'll see. Wide toggle. Oh, ultra wide requires a question mark. Front doesn't. All phones have a front camera and a wide camera. This question mark means if it is non-null, set its selected value to false. Let preferred camera equal to current mode type dot preferred camera. If preferred camera equal to dot wide toggle dot is selected equal to true. Else if preferred camera equal to start with tele, because wide can be the last option in this. Equal to front, no, ultra wide, then ultra wide toggle dot is selected equal to true. Here we are using the exclamation operator, which will crash if this is nil. But then if there is no telephoto camera, this function, this property shouldn't have returned tele. Else if preferred camera equal to front toggle dot is selected equal to true. Else y toggle dot is selected equal to true. This code is hard to understand and hard to verify. I have no idea if it is correct. I don't know if we can use switch. Switch. Let's write both. We'll see which code is cleaner and delete the other one. I'm saying cleaner and I wrote clear here. Front toggle dot is selected equal to true. Default y toggle dot is selected. We don't need to do break in Swift, it automatically breaks. Yeah, I think the switch case is cleaner. So let's see. We are resetting all the toggles to false. Then you are switching the preferred camera, whichever is the preferred, you are setting that to true. And iOS requires you to do a default. So if you just do case.wide, it will refuse to compile, saying the switch is not exhaustive. So basically this is making a photography decision, which should not be in the controller, which is UI code. Second point, the way this was written was clumsy. So this is how it should be. It's logical and easy to understand, and each mode should decide its preferred camera. Okay. Define mode dot preferred camera instead of hard coding this knowledge in controls controller, which is UI code, and so to the wrong place for this functionality. Oh, we are done with only the first one. Even that we are not done. We need to go back to the search and continue. Yeah, this is okay to put here because it says here this is only for long exposure mode. Again, we are deciding which UI controls are hidden, which is okay to put in the controller. Again, these are UI decisions. if you move this logic to video mode, it should have functions like is clock face hidden, which is a UI thing. Similarly, you could have a function shutter button background color in the mode, and it will return white in modes that capture a photo like burst mode and red in the others. That wouldn't be wrong, but the color red or white is a UI decision, so it's okay to leave it here. So this is where we need to be pragmatic, not idealistic. Good thing this regex will also catch as question mark and as exclamation mark. Yeah, this is odd. Why shouldn't long recording mode extend from mode? We'll see. Yeah, is done. This is not a numbered list, okay. What were we looking at? Yeah. It's odd to inherit from both mode and long recording mode. Okay, as we have covered, then we need to look at dot self and dot type. Mode dot self. Now it's not a regex. Oh. Oh, so how should we think about this? The function is tele better for this scene, like we discussed, decides whether the telephoto camera is better for the scene. If you are in light trail mode, the ISO is not taken into account. Over here. This variable is used only here, so it can move down. Declare variables with the smallest scope. In this case, we have reduced the scope of this by 5-6 lines. So if there's no tele camera, obviously tele is not better. If you are using something else, yeah, you can't. I mean, you should be using white. If it is light trail video and the zoom level is higher, so if it is light trail video mode, we just make a decision based on the zoom level. Otherwise, if it is some other mode, if the zoom level is not higher, we return false. But if the zoom level is higher, we still check some more parameters. Yeah, so I think this is tricky code. I mean, in wall code, there are like 6, 7 conditions that have to execute in a certain order. And some conditions, if they fail, you return false. But if they succeed, you have to check other conditions. Whereas in this case, you return true or false unconditionally. So now, I don't know what to do. It will be hard to refactor this. So we'll just leave it as it is. Yeah, this is multi-labs code, which will be cleaned up anyway in a different task. Yeah, so this one need not be told to this because it has access to the camera and it can figure out. But anyway, the task is not about this. The task is about whether, like, where should this code be? I think it's fine. Like, you can add a level of indirection, but I don't see it helping in this case. Yeah, front toggle. This is again a UI decision. The front camera is enabled only in time-lapse mode. So if you're not there, return. Basically don't offer it. This is again the default EV, which is -2 in light trail video mode. Again, this is technically a photography decision, not a UI decision. So we should ideally add a property in burst called preferred exposure value, return 0 in the base. But then, yeah, from controls controller, you have to access main controller. No, okay, you have access to the mode type. You have to ask the mode. I'm not seeing much benefit just for this one line of code. Yeah, this is again a UI decision. These modes do behave differently. So yeah, in the photo outputs captured callback. I don't think we have a captured callback anymore, but yeah, so in the time-lapse mode, we show this video playback duration label. So if you capture for 10 minutes and it creates a 1 minute video, it shows as 1 minute, not 10 minutes. So it's a playback duration, not a recording duration. So again, that is a UI decision. Or you do that in light trail video mode as well. If you have captured for 10 seconds and you've got a 1 second light trail, it will show 1 second. This code shouldn't be in the controller battery level. So if you start recording and let's say go to sleep and the battery runs low, you have to take care of this and stop recording. Otherwise what will happen, it won't stop and the phone will power off and you would have lost everything next morning when you wake up. So this code Okay. Again, some button is not shown in some mode. Again, that's a UI decision. Oh my god, look at this UI layout code. Anyone's guess where things show. Yeah, this one. Anyway, we have a task to remove global current mode there. This will be covered. Yeah. And I'll see you in the next video.